Doesn't fit here. Russell's here, but
It's small. It's amazing.
All right, it appears that we have a quorum, so the meeting of the Waterfront Advisory Committee come to order. Let's stand. The clerk has previously the minutes from the.
We have meeting agenda approval prior to that.
Thank you very much. A copy of the meeting agenda should be in front of everyone. Is there a motion to approve it as well?
Second.
All in favor? The minutes from the last meeting, December 1 meeting, are attached to the agenda.
Chair, I make a motion, we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
I have a question on that.
Have a second.
Okay.
We need a second before we discuss it.
Thank you. Does it accept?
No, it's not until we have a second.
Ms. Russell, this second.
Second. Discussion.
All right. Under discussion number 5, the marshal was talking about the waterfront, street water project on Waterfront Park. And towards the end of that paragraph, he said it's an ad of something about a 36-inch pipe above the moving platform. This will be encased and not above ground.
Right.
What is that? Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's above the platform, but below the dirt. So there's 6 feet of dirt on top of the platform.
Okay, so you're going through the backfill on top of the platform.
Right, underneath that fill on top of the platform.
Right, okay, good, thank you.
Any other comments with respect to the motion?
Tracy Emerson abstaining from voting on this.
All right, there's a motion to approve the minutes as written. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving to discussion items. The city manager, is there a status report on the public cleaning service?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, right now we've got 1,500 and some odd responses to the survey. Some discussion today, back from myself, Councilman Scaletti, and our PIO, Ashley Brandon, about whether we wanted to cut the survey off today or take it to the end of the week. And I think if there are no objections from the committee, I would like to have it extended to the end of the week, because we're giving it another push in the public to try to get some survey responses in. So if there are no issues with any committee members on that, we would like to cut it off on Friday versus today.
In fact, I've been on the impression it would be open until today.
It's the same, but I just wanted to be transparent about the discussions that we're having.
On that subject, could you explain for us what process will be followed once the survey is closed?
Once the survey is closed, our PIO, Ms. Brandon, she's not here, but our PIO will synthesize the results. She'll download the results from SurveyMonkey, and she will tabulate those and put them in a report. And that report will be brought forth to the Waterfront Advisory Committee for your consumption.
And that will be a tabulation by question of responses were.
Right. That's the responses on each question, how people responded. Should be a pretty thorough report.
Based on other questionnaires that have been sent out, how does this 1,500 responses? Low, high?
I don't know.
We don't know. And comparison to other.
I don't have recall of how many people responded to the surveys, so
I think, and Linda's here, she may be able to speak to this. I think at the time when you guys did the South Side survey, that was probably one of the most responses that you had at that time, and that was around 1,100 as
That's
well,
about
right?
1,100. We were excited to get 1,100.
Right.
And then downtown, I believe, got 3,000
For the
for down,
for the
Tiger
Tiger
team.
team, yep, that's right, okay.
And that, well,
but
but we
that,
got 3,000.
that also includes the bots or spammers, however you want to put it, who clearly, when you read through the survey, you've got the same response 15 different times. So they're-
Is there a way in the survey data that comes back to query time that responses are made? So that you might be able to do some kind of quantification on that particular, just like,
That's a great question. I don't know what I'll ask the question
you
again.
know, like if 20 results came in on May 5th or whatever date, right? And then at 3 p.m. and between 3 and 5, and you, you know, you see an anomaly there, and you're like, well,
Good question.
301, 305, 310.
yeah, you-
So I assume that it ought not be a problem to have a report on this sent out to the committee members prior to the February 2nd.
I anticipate that at least a preliminary report will be. So, and then if you need additional information beyond that, to refine it further. About how you can get this data chopped up.
So we could expect to get something. In your shop.
Yes.
I'd like to take item C next before item B, which is status of the plan to provide interim access to the data.
So we're entering into the permitting phase. The permit should be turned in this week by our engineers that we hired on both the DADOT and the DEDOT. That'll start that process. Rough estimate is we're guessing maybe 3 months for the approval on those. Those are not large scale projects. We could issue an RFP during the time that the permit's being considered. We just need to put an RFP on the disclaimer that it's contingent upon permitting of the project. That may speed things up a little bit. And then we've got, of course, to get the contracts in and then consider who we want to award the contracts to. All told, fabrication of the docks and ramps will be taking place after contract award. It can take about 4 to 6 weeks. Best case scenario right now, we're looking at maybe possibly June or July. Both of those. They're running concurrent.
I think it was a sense of this committee that like to see the permitting and RFP process. To see the same thing.
Yeah, and we'll do those concurrent.
Can you say a little bit more about the dinghy dock?
In terms of.
I didn't realize that the dinghy dock was a part of this plan, but
Linda, can you come up and speak to the DEDOT a little bit?
Sure.
You have more in detail than I do on that project.
So the dinghy dock was damaged during Hurricane Helene, or not, was that, yes, that's right. And so it was damaged, the end was done. We've looked at it, trying to replace, whether we were gonna just replace the end and just put it back in whole. But we have decided, money-wise and all, we are just going to go ahead and replace the entire dinghy dock. And this gives us a little bit more ability to widen the actual dock, the L finger that is in the water. It's gonna be about 10 feet wide, which will be able to have boats on both sides, be able to moor on both sides. Right now, the way the pilings are, the pilings stick out from the dock, and you can only get a very, very small boat in between. The pilings will be within the dock. And so then it'll be a smooth surface, and you can actually get more boats moored on it, and it would not be considered just a dinghy dock. You know,
we may want to change the name after we. went through the process of agreeing on that.
Well, actually, we did change the name. I was looking it up for permitting purposes. And, our ordinance, we changed it, a while back to the Marina Day Dock. And the reason why we said that was it was close to the day dock. And we had intentions all along that that would be also upgraded to now what we're doing. So we did name it Marina Day Dock, but I think we'll always call it Dinghy Dock. I think we'll always.
That saves confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, was the damage, since it was damaged in the hurricane, I assume there was insurance coverage?
Yes, there's an insurance coverage, and we also have some possibility to have FEMA reimbursement also. We're really going more of a mitigation route, that we're gonna get more money for the, or not more money, but we'll get additional money to be able to have upgrades on the dock itself. So we're looking into that and getting some final numbers from what we're gonna actually get from FEMA.
Now, my understanding is that Safe Harbor has responsibility for managing that dock. All right,
Yes, sir.
that's the understanding. And will they continue to manage it as public access, no charge,
Yes.
free?
And they have made that very clear, that they wanted to continue to manage it that way. That it's gonna be free as a day dock.
On the reconstruction of that, is the pylons in the same location, or are they being moved further out as in like depth on the inside? You know,
No, they're actually they're doing some survey on the pilings themselves to see about that, but, right now, no.
What will be the materials used to build?
We were talking about, doing a composite decking. If we get the mitigation money from FEMA, that was one of the costs that we could actually get for them through the mitigation. And it would be both docks would be that way.
The idea is to go out to bid or RFP for both docks, the day dock and the dinghy dock. The same, have the work done by the same contractor, is that correct?
We'll probably put out two separate RFPs because it's two different permits.
Okay, so it's different permits and the funding is different too, right? I mean, you're getting funding from insurance, FEMA perhaps, and
Right, but that's of no consequence to the contract.
that's no. But there will be two contractors.
Well, it may be the same contractor that gets both.
But it'll be two RFP. Okay.
For each project.
All right.
We're gonna put out for the permits are going out separately, but they are going out at the same time, but there is a possibility that one gets delayed. So we don't want to put them out as one RFP, just to clarify that.
Is there any way on the day dock, not the dinghy dock, to have some expediency in the process that we actually set a date in the RFP that the completion should be July 1, no later than?
Well, that's contingent upon the permitting, of course, but we can certainly try that.
Well, we need to have it open before Water Festival as a benchmark.
Right.
And so I would say July 1st is the deadline to get anything accomplished down there to make it water accessible. So that we have some PR opportunity to let the public know that you can still come downtown.
I agree with that. I just would not want that to keep a reputable contractor from bidding on it. If in other words, if all the contractors look at it and go, oh, I can't meet that deadline. I think we can certainly state that that would be a preference and strong consideration upon grading.
In the RFP, you could indicate timelines as part of the process.
Yeah. Also think, any contractor who bids on it will be very familiar with Beaufort and will know that that's probably a priority.
There's very few contractors that do that work in Beaufort, so.
Right. But I definitely think it's worthy of putting that language in the RFP.
And we have something about expediency and time and, bonus points for those who can accomplish this by a certain date. I think the Beaufort public would benefit greatly from having that open.
Yeah, I agree. That's good.
There was some stipulations on, there was not supposed to be any work done during April through November because of, manatee season.
For the, no, that's actually for the FEMA funds, because if we give FEMA for mitigation funds, because it's manatee season, April through November, so that's whether we accept those mitigation funds.
Was that potential delay on one of the projects? Cause that would be a delay on the.
That would be,
Yeah.
that would be a delay on the dinghy dock. The other funding is not contingent on FEMA funds. So we know that that one could go forward without any delay.
How much is the FEMA money for the?
I'm not, I don't remember right off the bat, but I think that they're still in negotiations on it, and it's not as much as you would think. If I remember correctly, it's not a whole lot.
Mr. Marshall, is the engineering complete on the data?
Is the engineering complete?
Change.
I would think that it would have to be complete enough to submit a permit.
Good.
Permits.
All right.
So the schedule you gave, both.
It does.
All right, are there any other questions? Then let's move on to the draft report on the issues regarding. And I would begin by saying that at the last meeting, we covered, I believe, all the points that are addressed here. The purpose of this draft is to bring together everything that was discussed. And I think it's pretty much agreed to at the last meeting. Since distributing this the other day, I have had some further thoughts about improvements that could be made. And I'm inclined to want to do a little more work on this, but for doing that, I would like to have a full discussion at this meeting today. What other people. One of the things I would like to work into a revised draft is references to the Saki report, which I have not been able to read in its entirety yet, but will do so. I think it would be a good idea to lift portions, relevant portions of that, and refer to them in this agreement, in this document, to give added weight to some of the issues. I agree with that.
And I actually, I didn't know that was requested in the last meeting, but that site or that plan is on the city's website. And I've sent that to everybody in email just a couple of minutes ago, so we all have a link that will take you to that plan. And I think it's in its entirety, it's 68 pages if I remember right, and it has the master plan there at the bottom. It took into consideration the 100 or so comments that was received from either business owners or citizens at the time, and some of the issues that were discussed in that plan are still relevant today. The parking issues, better coordinating bus operations and garages and stuff like that. So some of it will be relevant and perhaps useful, and others may not be, but the report's on the website. You guys now have it in your email.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. So I can't believe there are no comments
On your list?
on this document.
No, I think you hit, I've read it, I didn't bring it with me, I read it on the email, but the same comments, I think, pretty generically that we've been talking about. I mean, you mentioned 2 buildings, they're currently there, and your idea that they either need to be scratched or, made new or combined into one. I think that's something that's been discussed many times. So any type of, 40,000 feet planning for that whole area, the Sasaki plan needs to be looked at to see what merits need to continue. And then the idea, like the bigger picture, what are we trying to do with the Marine Operational Center? And we know that buildings are depleted. You know, that one, the ship store used to be the Chamber of Commerce. And it may even been part of the police station at one time. So it's had a long history, but it's not, unless it's protected historically, which we don't know yet. That might be a question we need to ask, is the Marina brick building listed as a contributing structure in the city?
I don't think it's without checking.
Pardon me?
I don't think it is without checking very
Yeah,
well.
we just need to make sure we don't go down a road we can't get away from, but, I don't think that the center block bathroom facility could fall into that auspice, but the other building may.
I think if I interpreted the draft correctly, it brings up an important point we kind of discussed back and forth about looking at this comprehensively, the marina side and downtown, if at all possible. Was that part of the intent of that draft, was to kind of capture doing, you know, a big comprehensive project and then perhaps looking at some of the old data studies that had been conducted to see how that might look in conjunction with the engineering plans that we have in the works now?
This, the intent of this, and I think it's clear in here, is that the comprehensive plan would address only the marina premises. I did not intend to capture the waterfront park premises as well. Certainly do that if that's
I think it's hard to do.
where we're headed.
It's hard to do till later, is when we get the results back from the initial engineering survey work that they're doing on the three projects, the three attempts to design. And then we have to wait for the survey to see how that gets tweaked, if the council is actually gonna consider that data, or if it's relevant. But it'd be hard to do till you get that data as the first step. So the marina thing though is not in that. The marina parking lot and the marina itself is separate to me from the park, even though they're combined. And they have to be considered in synergy because the traffic lanes, for example, tie into the park. And the Sasaki plan will probably clearly show that, right? So if you look at that plan, try to understand how we came up with that pavilion and that commemorative garden and where it's at. I think if you look at the Sasaki plan, you'll understand how that happened. But you also will understand why we didn't get there. We didn't get 100% done.
I think you hit to me, the three major points are, how do we increase public access to the marina? How do we have safer, more attractive, better flow of traffic for the parking lot? And then how do we improve the use of the structures that are there, be it new structures or modifications of what's there? So I think those are the three aspects with the marina. Now, as Mike said, I think it ties in with, you can't just divorce it from what's going on with the Waterfront Park, but you can kind of, I guess, somewhat segregate it, and just say, for the marina, this is what we need.
I think I hear what.
Mr. Chairman, council is having their planning retreat the 29th and 30th of this month. And the agenda is still being drafted. I think it may be appropriate if this committee would like to provide the council an update at that time. 29th and 30th. If this report is where you want it to be by then. I'm not pushing, I'm just giving an opportunity.
Well,
If not, we can do it another time again. I kind of pressure.
no, I understand, it's a good opportunity. But I do want to take another swipe.
Gotcha.
Yes, I would want it to get another look.
Okay.
I'm not sure we do that.
We can do it another time.
Which, one of the next things that we had as far as the resolution's concerned is the community stakeholder engagement, solicit input from key stakeholders, including local businesses, identify methods to increase public participation. So that, I think part of that will come from the survey. And so it may make sense that whatever this draft evolves into being is kind of passed along to council in conjunction with whatever the data is that comes back from the survey results.
Well, I agree, you raise a good point, and that is, done a public survey on Waterfront Park. We have not done any public survey on this.
Right.
Opinion survey.
Whether it's a charrette or just a public reception, at some point, we need to have a open door presentation on the survey results and the work that's done today. With the public, and it's open to the public, it's online. Something that meets the requirement of the ordinance that was written that says public engagement.
We can have a special session to do that, or put it on a work session agenda, whatever this feels like would be the best.
It probably should be a work session or a non-committee session in my mind, so there's no actions taken. And it's just an invite to the public to come sit and coffee table, review what we've done so far, see the results of our survey. Maybe read some documents or have a presentation by the chairman, somebody say, here's what we're thinking, if we're that far along. And maybe when would any engineering information come forward?
We're waiting on those drawings to get developed.
You know, like a month, 2 months out?
I hope we can, by mid-February, have a date nailed down or work it by mid-February. So we want to definitely do it in the first quarter. We're going to have that published charrette with the options.
Yeah, that'd be good. After that would be the timing. I would say this would need to happen if we're gonna have any kind of public input. To see what the three initial, if that's the number they're bringing back to us.
Right.
Like you're talking about having a charrette that would incorporate work, Joe, and then the questionnaire and the drawings all presented at the same.
But I think, I'm not sure how much we can go from this committee to the chairman's work, because we haven't ratified any of that. So we're gonna vote, but we've been working at this a while, and, you know, for me, the sad part is we're only doing this once a month, and councils only meet once a month, so it seems like we're doing this the slow way. But I don't know that we can do any faster because of how difficult this is, waiting on engineers, waiting on permits, waiting on these things. But, you know, we're starting to get a little bit of public pushback on what the hell is taking so long, right? And what are you gonna do in the meantime? If we don't get out there, at least get out there and invite the public to listen. Now, they're invited to this meeting, they can be here right now, but that's just not how it normally works. And I'm not sure if we, you know, rent the hotel room downtown and did an open door and said, all right, on this given afternoon, you come in and see everything we have, that would suffice. But that's when you would personally invite business owners, building owners, and property owners in, you know, in the area.
I will clarify just one of those points, and that
Go ahead.
council meets twice a month now, starting this year.
Oh, are you now?
So tomorrow
You
we'll
took my
have a regular
advice? Good.
session, and then we'll have a work session the
I'm
fourth
glad y'all
Tuesday.
took my
Yeah,
advice.
so-
Thank you. Thank you. That makes me sleep better tonight.
Just a plug for the new schedule.
Okay.
All right, well. We've gotten some public input, public opinion survey on the, let's call it the amenity features of the Waterfront Park. We will have a charrette, public charrette, when the engineers produce what they're gonna produce, and each with our approval. I think it's ready. So that was publicly. And then there's this, the marina. And I think this is separate. So I'm inclined to think that once this report is done, it's still a report to council, which hasn't been delivered to council yet. Maybe we can have some kind of a public viewing and comment on this, before it's actually finalized. That would probably, we can approve this finally February 2nd. We could schedule the public event, whatever it's gonna be, shortly after.
I would agree, it's gonna be cleaner to keep the marina separate.
You know, get too much going on.
Because we're really not making decisions on the marina related to what's going on in the park. Park is complete. I mean, we're relying on engineers to come forward with information, the public to opine on what their thoughts are to the park, and then council's decision on what to do next after we give our opinion on it. And then, of course, people's gotta go out there and beat the bushes for funding to make it happen. And then the public's gonna wanna know what timeline, what are you doing about getting the money? How long is it gonna take? You know, you saw some recent social media work where they're talking 5 to 7 years and stuff like that. I mean, the number's starting to grow. As far as the timeline, and it's probably not unrealistic, but it doesn't have to be in the big question mark.
You know, I almost think while we're in, a little bit of a lull period waiting for the engineers, I do think, Dick Stewart's article and stuff was actually, I thought, pretty well written. But it does bring us some good points, and should we be focusing on, is there anything we can do in the interim? While we have a little bit of downtime with engineers to improve, the resident tourist experience there.
And we talked about that here before. I guess, I mean, we can make that as part of the recommendation, and I know council's probably getting phone calls, you're probably getting stuff related. And that's something that really, and I responded back to Dick's article, and it really is a council decision. And I'm not one to like to waste taxpayers' dollars. I don't know where the money would come from to do some of these things that would actually be reversed soon as the work started, but we don't know when the work will start.
Yeah.
So at some point, that investment may be worth it. The comments were mainly about the fence and the swing. Those are the two big things. And I'm just not sure how you securely, lower the fence and how you make it secure without some kind of human enforcement. Signs doesn't really work.
Maybe the answer is nothing can be done, but I think there is, I've heard from a lot of people, can we do something in the interim where it's more, less harsh on the eye, less harsh on the usability of it, if you will, so.
Couldn't we target the idea of getting, call it decorative fencing, if you, of course, based on Dick Stewart's comments? Target that to have them in place or some type of thing, placed by the Waterfront Festival. Because we're not gonna be starting construction at that time. We're barely gonna have the engineering done by February, plus it has to be reviewed and permitted, approved, and RFPs and everything else. Nothing's gonna happen. But to target getting something up and that looks good in conjunction with the Waterfront Festival, as we're trying to do with that day dock, it might work for us in terms of work for the city and the economy and the visitors to the city and what they see instead of the chain link fence out there. That's very temporary.
Nobody's gonna disagree with you, and I think that's the comment that I'm starting to get more and more of is, all right, you guys are gonna be here forever doing this, so what can we do in the interim?
That's what that's what I'm.
That's a council decision, but how do we get it to council to make them to go ahead and do that and pay for it?
Well, I think they would be relying on this body for recommendation with regard to
Okay.
what to do or how to do it. We do have mechanisms in place where if donors are concerned enough and would like to donate to the cause, we could accept donations through Pride of Place and designate those for park improvements at Waterfront Park. So I think that may be one feasible option to go with, and would be completely reliant upon taxpayer dollars or we don't, we have a budget set for FY26 and we're more than halfway through FY26 now. So I don't think we want to wait till FY27 to do this. So I think
Maybe it'd be of value. I know that the Freedom's Arts District they're one of the ones that has reached out to me, and probably others as well. And so maybe it would be of value to invite them into a meeting where we can sit down and talk with them about what options might exist for something that's easier on the eye. I mean, I guess you have to do it delicately, right? And there's probably a creative option out there. You probably wouldn't want too much artwork along the side, because the idea is to to have a view, you know, so you wouldn't want to block that any more than it is. But I think that maybe inviting them to the table could be of value since they have interest in trying to help provide a solution for that.
Yeah, I think you can ask any group, they'll tell you a lots of things. It seemed to me you would go to a landscape company contractor like the greenery or whoever does our service and say, you know, give us a proposal how you would do this differently if you want to make it aesthetic first for a budget, right?
Too, yeah.
And it's like, all right, so we can put a fence in that's this tall of this material and put in some swing areas for, you know, it'll cost you this much money, and then we can talk to the public about, is that what you want, or is that suitable? But you could also tell them, well, we want to be able to do some more installations on it possibly. I mean, I'm just thinking about, when you drive down the interstate, you see those concrete barriers they put to keep you from getting into the work zone. They're low, but they're actually very obvious, effective, right? So, and they're reusable, and it's not something you're just gonna throw away at the end of the project. It's like, well, you can almost lease those.
You're not gonna get out of your car and jump over it either.
I mean, people, I'm sure they're gonna hang out. That's the problem with it's the enforcement, you know, signs keep honest people honest, the same like blocks, right? So you're gonna get somebody in the park, but, you know, one or two people walking in the park shouldn't cave the park in, but it's just that whole liability issue. You know, you put a sign up, you can't make people obey it. Then therefore you have to have some type of enforcement where they might have more eyes on the park eventually.
On the staff side, you can go ahead and start gathering information and cost data on what it would take to install 5-foot high fence or whatever you think the right answer would be that would be more aesthetically pleasing. And just come back to the street cost numbers, and I think Councilman Scalay had a good recommendation to invite the Freedman Arts District in, since they have some good recommendations, ideas.
Have we gotten the safe harbor private park?
Right place.
Appreciate it.
I don't think they've offered it for the repair of the dinghy dock.
They offered it for the repair of the dinghy dock, but not for Waterfront Park. That was
And it should stay in the dean, I think, anything they do ought to stay in the
we
marina.
haven't requested.
And we don't have money there.
So anyways, how do we make, I mean, I can make a motion or if we need to, but we need to get that kicked down the road.
You don't need to make a motion for me to start gathering cost data.
All right, so I'd like for you to bring something back to the next meeting that says, you know, that we are at least thinking about what the public's asking us.
Sure.
And here, so that we can say, well, we're doing it, we may be able to do it, here's the cost. And would you be willing to do a pride of place donation to help us get it done?
Yeah.
I think it's moving the swings and chicken fence, I think is really two things.
Yeah, swings anyway.
Yeah, those are the two easy things to do, it just costs money, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if that was there, at least they feel like they got something, you know, the public would feel like they've been listened to.
We can investigate for the cost of that. Sure.
Okay. Any other discussion of the Waterfront Park, just call it an interim process? So city manager is going to come back with some ideas for interim improvements.
Cost data.
Cost data. This time, since there seems to be no further discussion among committee members, I would ask if there's any member of the public who is here present or not here present, but otherwise present, would like to, any member of the public who would like to make comments on any subject that's been discussed. Yes, I'm
I'm quite I see a copy of the society. Good information in there. The other thing is, the engineers did discuss about having a plan there to get us black and white rendering.
Yeah, we talked about that being part of
Okay. The other thing is, on the minutes, in the minutes of the December 1 meeting, I had one thing in there, from the middle paragraph on page 2. Talks about the trash dumpsters enclosures, the relocation of fuel tanks, and then the next sentence. It was noted that fuel tanks must be above ground. And I wrote on some art, we talked about that last time. And I wrote something on the way I feel about fuel tanks. And it goes like this: if I owned a logging company in the country and had fuel tanks on the back lot underground, it might be a good location to abandon in place fuel tanks. If I own a trucking company on the edge of town with underground fuel tanks and decided to abandon in place, this procedure might be accepted. And abandon in place is a technical term for abandoning those fuel tanks. But these fuel tanks that we were talking about are on Main Street, Buford, Bay Street, inside the Henry C. Chambers Waterfront Park. This is the most valuable property the city of Buford owns on the waterfront in the park. If they abandon these underground fuel tanks, they're abandoning this property, holding the tanks forever. Nobody will be able to do any site work in this area. This portion of the park will be useless. Plus, now the city has to use additional valuable land with the most valuable property the city owns to install above ground fuel tanks, taking up even more property. Also, a friend of mine who has experience with abandoned in place fuel tanks speaks about how the problems they had with these abandoned fuel tanks with environmental issues. They ended up paying 3 times as much years later to clean up the site after the fuel tanks had been abandoned in place years earlier. The size of the fuel tanks I'm concerned about. I mean, I don't think Safe Harbor's going to have any problem picking up the phone and calling a diesel truck to come over here and fill up fuel tanks. So I'm saying they may not need the maximum, 10,000 gallon fuel tank. Buford is a beautiful destination for boats. It does not need to be the optimum fuel depot. Safe Harbor with these connections can work through as needed using smaller tanks. The new fuel tanks should be underground and they've put in place the current fuel tanks, above ground fuel tanks on Main Street, Buford, would be unsightly and offensive. Fuel tanks at Port Royal Landing Marina over by the bridge, owned by Safe Harbor, are underground as they should be. That's all I got. And the other point is, by approving these minutes of this previous vote, today's minutes, does that mean this committee is endorsing above ground fuel tanks?
No, there's no, well, we normally don't answer public comment period, but I'll be, my opinion on it. It was a presentation about what the tanks are. There's been no decisions to this body. We don't make a decision on what type of tanks there are. There's that's information. So I think staff said that they typically would do above ground because of DHEC requirements. It's really tough to get a permit to put underground tanks at sea level. So they may not be able to do it regardless of what we feel about it. And the abandoned in place process, and I've done this before, usually you have to remediate before you don't just walk away from the tanks, you remediate and fill them with concrete and they're there, they're done, and they're below ground. Now, you're asking, well, you do something, develop it, it's public land, I don't see what development might happen. In fact, it'd be a place you typically landscape or put another tank above it, in my opinion. So you would use that surface area to build vertical to put a tank in, if that was the direction somebody was gonna take, but it's not killing, it's not making the land useless. There is a process though, and I don't think council or anybody at this table has the ability to navigate around that. It's what DHEC says you can or can't do. But we'll know when they get there, I guess. It'd be my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. We have anyone outside this room among the public? All right, at this point, since we've concluded the discussion of the agenda, There a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion. We go into executive session pursuant to Title 30, Chapter 4, Section 70A-2 of the South Carolina Code of Law. This will be for the purpose of discussions of negotiation incident to propose contractual arrangements and receive legal advice relating to matters covered by the attorney-client privilege.
Your second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.